Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is Friday, December 20th, 2024. That's 4.5 years of Torah every single day. It's broadcast 1201. It is also day 441 of the war. We come to each other every single day with love, and by saying good morning to each other, like Susie and Penny. It's good to see you. Robin, welcome. Adele, good to see you too. Linda, good Shabbos, kind soul. Nice to see you. Today is a complicated day. I'll explain a little bit of the headlines coming up. But what I wanted to do is double down on what makes this community so holy. We are a community of good people from all over the world, be it in Frankfurt with Peter, who's watching with his granddaughter Mila, who's 2.5. She's wearing his kippah. Boker Tov, Mila. Nice to meet you. Minna and Fabrice, Sunday and Jack, Deborah and John, Tara and Rosa, Tziona, Boker Tov. Good to see all of you. Hope that you are well. Caroline, you are in the hospital with your mother, who will be passing away soon. This will be her last Shabbat. We are with you, dear friend. We are with you. And what an honor to be in the room with you, sharing Torah in the presence of your mother. May she be blessed. And if this is her transition, may it be blessed. May she feel what the tradition calls a hair being pulled through milk, is how the Talmud describes a good death. Sending you a lot of love and comfort and strength. Natalie and Hannah, Fabrice, Barry, Cecile and Blair, Debbie and Linda, Jerry, Judy. Good to see all of you. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Steve. All right, if I missed anyone, my apologies. Here is where we are. Caroline, really, thank you for sharing in such an open and bearing way where you are. This Torah is for you. Let's take a breath, friends, and let's sing a blessing for learning. We'll learn some Torah, and we'll get ready for Shabbat. Ya la 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 la, didi ya la la la, didi ya la 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 la, ay ay la la la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah la'asok b'divrei Torah Hafoch ba v'hafoch ba la'asok b'divrei Torah. Didi I li 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 li, didi I li li li, didi I li 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 li, I la li li. So good morning, friends. With all the places that we are, Caroline with her mother, Carolyn with her mother in the hospital, Catherine in Australia, feeling fear because of the forest fires, Peter in Frankfurt with his beautiful granddaughter with her. Here we all are. Here we all are. And let's be fully present. We can hold all of these things at the same time. The complicated headline that I was going to point to is at the top of the Times of Israel, because there has been a mosque in the West Bank that was torched and marked with graffiti that says the word in Hebrew, nekama, which means vengeance, revenge. And I can't get it out of my eyes. It's not really about this parasha, but I'm going to try to bring it into a conversation about the parasha, because we have to be able, if we are going to live, please God, full and rich lives, to face the world as it is, and as we say every day on our broadcast in our community, to raise things up just a little bit closer to how it ought to be. That's what we do. That's what every parsha does. This Parsha, VaYeshev, is very much about descent and descent and descent because Joseph begins in a privileged position. He really does. The most beloved of his father, the son of the beloved wife. Now, all of this, of course, in modern ears, is so complicated. That's not how we should feel about our children. We should be very aware that that is a recipe for badness, for children not getting along, for the perpetuation of the idea, God forbid, that there's only so much love in the world. No, there's a lot of love. There's more than enough love for every child in this world. There's more than enough God for every faith in this world. And the idea that because of pain that one group feels, they have the right to attack another, well, that is the language that we have to use to counter the terrorism that attacked the state of Israel and Jewish people all around the world 441 days ago on October 7th, and that continues to rear its head in places like Montreal, where swastikas were painted on a synagogue. But it is also the case that we can't use that language about others, holding them accountable, if we do not use it for ourselves. And so it is incredibly important for us to remember that where Joseph starts in a privileged position, but is set up for failure, he descends when his brothers throw him into the pit. He descends when the merchants bring him and sell him in Egypt. He descends when in Egypt he is thrown into a dungeon. And the beginning of the ascent begins only next week. But here we are, friends, here we are, in a moment that with Joseph we're in a place of dark, with a hint of light, and interrupting this story in Parshat VaYeshev is an incredibly complicated sub-story, or its own Torah within one parsha, the story of Tamar. Tamar is married to a child of Judah. Her husband dies, and according to tradition, which we eventually called Yibum, the surviving brother of the brother who died, if the one who died has not had children with his wife, the surviving brother is supposed to marry the widow and have a child to perpetuate their brother's name. In the ancient world, this was very common, levirate marriage. It's something that many peoples did. But when a brother, the second brother, marries Tamar and dies, Judah, the father, says, I'm not going to continue this tradition. I don't want to get into the entire story, but I do want to say that within the complexity of VaYeshev is a deeper complexity, because ultimately what Tamar does in order to save herself, I'll just tell the story. I don't know what to do with it. You should look it up. If you don't know the story, you won't believe it's in the Torah until you look it up. So get a chumash when we're done. Go look up the story. Tamar dresses up like a harlot at the side of the road, and Judah passes. It's so strange what happens next. He hires her, and they sleep together, and she becomes pregnant. And the way that he pays her during the encounter is with his staff and his seal. When it is found that Tamar is pregnant, but she had not married the youngest brother, the town, the village, the clan, the family, including Judah, say she must die. And she says, I know who the father is, whoever has this staff and this seal, because she's kept Judah's signs. And Judah says, you've acted nobly. Now, how do we understand the story? I think the short answer is we don't quite, except that Tamar, in complicated situations, navigates for her own safety without acting hatefully. It's a complicated story. It deserves a lot of attention and a lot of time. But how powerful it is to think about Tamar and Joseph, because they are the heroes of this parsha. Joseph is about to save the world by taking all of his gifts and everything he has been through and offer up something to save the world. Tamar does everything in her power to save herself and ultimately even to save the dignity of the person who hurt her, which is Judah. And so the complexity of all of this, and yes, I don't know what your real name is, but Const Gurley on Instagram saying it also takes a man to admit he was wrong. The power of that, of acknowledging Joseph implies through his actions that he knows how humble he should have always been. And that's what I believe helps him rise up, not just in the ranks, but also in our perceptions and our reading of his character. And Tamar also. Tamar puts Judah in a position where he can and does acknowledge that he was wrong. And in fact, the beginning of next week's Parsha says very much the same thing. The butler whose dream Joseph interprets in this week's Parsha, who returns to his post by the king of Egypt's side. Joseph asks him when he's about to be released, when the butler is about to be released from prison, please don't forget me. The end of this week's Torah portion says, but he forgot. Next week's Torah portion, just to do a little preview, when Pharaoh starts having dreams, he can't find anyone who will solve it, but the butler remembers. And he begins with a phrase, and we'll talk about it next week some more. Et chata'ai ani maskir hayom. I recognize my sins today. And with that statement, history turns again. Joseph is released from jail, ascends, and we know where the story goes, and if not, we'll learn it together over the weeks to come. But the acknowledgement of wrong. Within a life, our ability to acknowledge that we were wrong is among the most sublime of gifts, the most treasured of character traits, to acknowledge you're wrong. And so I want to return, without only focusing on it, to the headline that I mentioned before. Terrorists from within the Jewish community in Israel burned a mosque and graffitied Hebrew letters that said the word vengeance. Et chata'enu anachnu mazkirim hayom. Our sins do we acknowledge today. We have to hold ourselves accountable if we want anyone to hold themselves accountable. Like Judah, thank God for Tamar's teaching, we have to acknowledge when we were wrong. Joseph is humbled by life's experiences and eventually learns how to do better. And the butler next week in our Parsha will say, Et chata'ai ani maskir hayom. I acknowledge my sins, and that's what leads to redemption. May we be blessed, friends, to not sin so much, to try not to make mistakes, but let us acknowledge when we do make mistakes. We do. It is clear that we are all human, and we'll do our best, but we don't always succeed. I bless us to acknowledge, as Caroline's saying, our mistakes. It's the first step towards tshuva. It is true for individuals, and it is true for people. And we as a people are beautiful, and we make mistakes. Sometimes we do wrong. One of them is in the news today. So I hope we won't shy away from examining our own hearts here and making sure that the best of us is present most of the time, maybe all of the time, to always reach for better. As we're reaching, let's reach. Reach all the way to the east with me on this Erev Shabbat. May we have our family back so we can continue being our best selves. Kol hod balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia. עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. See you next week.